The emergency beacon cut through hyperspace like a knife through silk, its desperate signal reaching the nearest Terran patrol ship 3 days after the Zephyrian colony of New Meridia fell silent. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the TSS Vengeance, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the distress message that had just finished playing for the third time. The alien on the recording was clearly terrified. Ambassador Kethvar of the Zephyrian Republic, his usually pristine blue-scaled features now marked with cuts and burns, spoke in broken galactic standard as explosions echoed in the background. His people, known throughout the galaxy for their advanced technology and peaceful nature, were being systematically destroyed by something called the Vorthan Empire. The translation software is having trouble with some of his words, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from the communication station. But the message is clear. They're asking for help, and they're willing to pay any price for it. Chen nodded slowly. The Zephyrians had always been polite, but distant neighbors to humanity. Their technology was centuries ahead of Earth's. Their cities were marvels of engineering that floated in perfect harmony with their planet's unique electromagnetic fields. And their society had eliminated war, hunger, and disease long before humans had even developed agriculture. They had offered limited trade agreements with the Terran Federation, but always with an air of barely concealed condescension, as if they were humoring a child. Now they were begging for help. What do we know about this Vorthan Empire? Chen asked, turning to her intelligence officer. Commander Williams pulled up a new display. Very little, ma'am. They appeared on our sensors about 6 months ago, emerging from the dark space beyond the outer rim. No prior contact, no diplomatic overtures. They've been hitting colony worlds and outposts with overwhelming force, taking prisoners, but leaving no survivors among those who resist. The tactical display showed a spreading pattern of conquered systems, each one marked with the crimson symbol of Vorthan occupation. What caught Chen's attention wasn't just the speed of their advance, but the methodical nature of it. These weren't random raiders or desperate refugees. This was conquest, pure and simple. Their ships are massive, Williams continued. Each one appears to be the size of a small moon, heavily armored and armed with energy weapons that can crack a planet's crust. Intelligence estimates they have at least 50 of these vessels, possibly more. Chen studied the data with growing concern. 50 moon-sized warships would be enough to challenge the entire Terran fleet in open battle. But that wasn't what worried her most. What worried her was the pattern of their attacks. They're heading for the core worlds, she realized aloud. Earth, Mars, the industrial colonies. They're not just expanding randomly, they have a plan. The communications officer interrupted. Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from Fleet Command. Admiral Morrison's weathered face appeared on the main screen, his expression grim. Captain Chun, you've seen the Zephyrian distress call. I'm ordering the Vengeance to New Meridia immediately. Your mission is threefold. Assess the situation, gather intelligence on this Vorthan Empire, and determine if an alliance with the Zephyrians is in our strategic interest. Chun straightened. Understood, sir. What are my rules of engagement? Morrison's eyes hardened. Use your best judgment, Captain. But, remember, if these Vorthans are heading for human space, we need to know what we're dealing with. And we need allies. The transmission ended, leaving Chun alone with her thoughts and a bridge full of expectant faces. She had served in the Terran fleet for 15 years, rising through the ranks during the border wars against the hegemony pirates and the brief but brutal conflict with the Centauri separatists. She had seen humanity at its worst and its best, had watched human soldiers accomplish impossible things through sheer determination and tactical brilliance. But she had never faced an enemy with 50 moon-sized warships. Set course for New Meridia, maximum burn, she ordered. And send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them we'll need more than one ship if we're going to make a difference. The Vengeance was a Prometheus-class heavy cruiser, one of the newer ships in the Terran fleet. Built for long-range patrol and rapid response, it carried a crew of 800 and mounted enough firepower to level a city. Compared to the massive Vorthan vessels, it would be like a gnat attacking a tiger. But Chen had learned long ago that size wasn't everything in space combat. Speed, tactics, and the willingness to take risks could overcome almost any advantage. As the ship jumped to hyperspace, Chen found herself thinking about humanity's place in the galaxy. Humans were newcomers, having achieved faster-than-light travel less than 2 centuries ago. Most of the older species viewed them as primitive, violent, and unpredictable. The Zephyrians had been among the most polite in their dismissal, offering limited trade while making it clear they considered humans to be barely above savages. Now those same Zephyrians were asking for help. The journey to New Meridia took 18 hours at maximum hyperspace burn. When the Vengeance dropped back into normal space at the edge of the system, the first thing Chun noticed was the silence. New Meridia had been a hub of activity, its orbital stations and defensive platforms generating enough electromagnetic noise to be heard across half the sector. Now the system was as quiet as a tomb. Sensors are picking up debris fields, Lieutenant Commander Hayes reported from the science station. Looks like the remains of at least 20 Zephyrian vessels, including what appears to be a heavy cruiser. Chen studied the tactical display with growing unease. The Zephyrians didn't maintain large fleets. Their advanced technology had always been their primary defense. If they had lost 20 ships here, including a heavy cruiser, then whatever had attacked them was far more dangerous than the intelligence reports had suggested. Take us in slowly, she ordered. Full sensor sweep, and keep the weapons hot. As they approached the inner system, the scope of the destruction became clear. New Meridia itself was intact, its floating cities still orbiting the planet in their complex gravitational dance, but the orbital infrastructure was gone. Defense platforms had been reduced to twisted metal, and the massive shipyard that had been the pride of the Zephyrian Republic was now nothing but an expanding cloud of debris. But there were signs of life. Emergency beacons flickered from several locations on the planet's surface, and heat signatures indicated that some of the floating cities still had power. "We're being hailed," Rodriguez announced. "Audio only, and it's encrypted with Zephyrian military codes." Chen nodded. "Put it through." The voice that emerged from the speakers was tired and desperate, speaking in accented but clear galactic standard. "Unknown vessel. This is Colonel Vinthera of the New Meridia Defense Force. Identify yourself immediately, or we will fire." "Colonel, this is Captain Sarah Chun of the Terran Federation ship Vengeance. We received your distress call and are here to assist." There was a long pause, filled with static and what sounded like whispered conversations in the background. When Vinthera spoke again, his tone had changed completely. "Captain Chun, forgive me. We have been cautious since the attack. Can you provide proof of your identity?" Chen quickly transmitted the Vengeance's registration codes and her own command authorization. Another pause, shorter this time. "Confirmed. Captain, I cannot express how grateful we are for your arrival. We had not expected. That is, we are honored that the Terran Federation has answered our call." The careful politeness was still there, but underneath it Chun could hear something she had never heard from a Zephyrian before: genuine respect, mixed with desperate hope. "What's your situation, Colonel? We have approximately 2 million survivors scattered across the remaining floating cities. The Vorthans departed 3 days ago, but they left behind automated sentries and hunter-killer drones. We estimate they took nearly 500,000 prisoners before they withdrew." Chun felt her jaw tighten. 500,000 prisoners. The number was staggering, even by the brutal standards of interstellar warfare. "Colonel, I need to speak with your senior command staff. Can you arrange a meeting?" "Of course, Captain. But I must warn you, the journey to our command center will be dangerous. The Vorthan sentries are still active, and our own defenses are severely compromised." Chen looked around her bridge, seeing the same determination in her crew's faces that she felt burning in her own chest. The Zephyrians might have looked down on humanity for centuries, but they had asked for help, and Chen would be damned if she was going to let pride stand in the way of doing what was right. "Colonel, prepare your command staff for a briefing. We're coming down." As the Vengeance moved into orbit around New Meridia, Chen began planning the mission that would take her and her team to the planet's surface. She didn't know what they would find there, or whether humanity would be able to make a real difference against an enemy that had devastated one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty. The Vorthans had made a mistake when they decided to threaten human space. They had no idea what they were dealing with. Humans might be primitive by galactic standards, might be violent and unpredictable, but they had one advantage that no amount of technology could overcome. When humans were pushed, they didn't just push back. They pushed back harder than anyone thought possible, and they never, ever gave up. The real war was about to begin. The shuttle descent through New Meridia's atmosphere was unlike anything Captain Chun had experienced before. The planet's unique electromagnetic fields, which had once been carefully controlled by Zephyrian technology, now fluctuated wildly. Lightning storms crackled between the floating cities, and auroras painted the sky in violent shades of green and purple. "Sensors are going crazy," Pilot Lieutenant Torres reported, fighting to keep the shuttle steady. "These EM fields are playing hell with our navigation systems." Chun gripped her restraints as the shuttle bucked through another electromagnetic storm. Beside her, Sergeant Major Martinez checked his rifle for the third time, while Dr. Elizabeth Warren reviewed her medical scanner readings. The away team was small, but experienced, exactly the kind of group that could adapt quickly to changing circumstances. "Contact bearing 27 Mark 6, Torres announced. "It's big, and it's moving fast." Through the shuttle's viewport, Chin saw something that made her blood run cold. A Vorthan hunter-killer drone the size of a building was rising from the planet's surface, its weapon systems already charging with ominous red energy. The thing looked like a mechanical spider crossed with a spaceship, all angular armor plating and protruding weapon barrels. "Evasive maneuvers," Chin ordered, but Torres was already throwing the shuttle into a spiraling dive. Energy beams lanced past the shuttle's hull, close enough that Chun could feel the heat through the reinforced windows. Torres banked hard left, using one of the floating cities as cover, but the drone was relentless in its pursuit. "I can't shake it," Torres said through gritted teeth. "This thing is faster than anything in our files." Chin's mind raced. The shuttle's defensive systems were designed for light combat, not for going head-to-head with something that could probably take on a frigate. But sometimes the best defense was a good offense. "Martinez, prep a magnetic mine. Torres, when I give the signal, cut engines and drop us into a deadfall." "Captain, that's suicide," Torres protested. "Not if we time it right. Trust me." Chun watched the tactical display as the drone closed in for the kill, its weapons charging for what would certainly be a fatal shot. The distance markers counted down: 500 meters, 400, 300. Now, Torres cut the engines, and the shuttle dropped like a stone. The drone, caught off guard by the sudden maneuver, overshot its target by nearly 200 meters. In that critical moment, Martinez launched the magnetic mine through the shuttle's rear hatch. The mine attached itself to the drone's hull and detonated 3 seconds later. The explosion tore through the creature's armor plating, sending it spinning toward the planet's surface in a trail of fire and twisted metal. "Nice shooting," Chun said as Torres restarted the engines and brought them back under control. "Part of the job," Martinez replied, but Chun could see the satisfaction in his eyes. Humans might not have the most advanced technology in the galaxy, but they had something that couldn't be programmed or manufactured: the ability to think on their feet and turn desperation into victory. The rest of the descent passed without incident, and soon they were landing at what remained of the Zephyrian Command Center. The building had once been a marvel of engineering, its crystalline structure rising from a floating platform like a frozen waterfall. Now it was scarred and blackened,